Our laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. Psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for Christ's sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
Hey everybody, welcome to Ask Dr. Drew. We got calls coming in today. There you are on the restream. I'm seeing you guys pile in now. We're going to have the great Tom Arnold in here in just a few moments, and his partner Sasha Boggs. I called her Roggs. There's something very strange going on my prompter up here, but be that as it may, thank you all for joining us. Let's give you a chance to kind of come on in here, and we'll get to Tom in just a second. Terry's asking, should I get the flu shot? Absolutely. And if you're over 65, certainly over 75, you might think about getting the double strength flu shot. And we'll talk a little bit today about the Breonna Taylor thing, perhaps. We're going to give Sasha a chance to maybe interview me. One thing I want to say before we get started, again, I'm looking at the data, particularly in Southern California. The press is going, I mean, it's extraordinary the lengths to which they're going to make panic. Now you're seeing things like the fall is going to be not just apocalyptic, very apocalyptic. Apocalyptic's not enough. Very apocalyptic is where we have to go. And yet I am reviewing the data right now, and I'm here to tell you the case rates are going down. The hospital rate is going down. Our ability to keep people out of the ICU and dying of this thing are way down. I mean, we are doing quite well. Now, there are some states that are having a little surge. That is because of schools opening up, particularly universities. So we kind of know why that's happening. We expected that to happen. And so everyone, wear your mask, be careful, do what you're supposed to do. And again, we'll take calls at 984-237-3739. Again, that is 984-Dr. Drew, right? 2 Dr. Drew, 942 Dr.
9842 Dr. Drew.
Thank you, guys. Let's bring the great Tom Arnold in right now. Can we bring him in?
Hey, okay, buddy. There you go. Oh my God! Look at Sasha. Look at Sasha.
I know. Look
Boggs.
at Sasha. She looks great.
Oh my!
This is going to be tremendous. Tom,
how are you?
I'm just going to darken your screen. We're going to let you go. So,
yeah, please.
But please, enjoyed being on your podcast. I enjoyed being on your podcast, guys. Thank you so much for inviting me in and being a part of it. And you lit me up with a bunch of stories, Tom.
Yes, as always. Listen, we are honored to have you on our podcast. And what's fun about our podcast is, Sasha is, she lives here, Drew. She lives here with me and the kids. And and my friends asked me, called me up. I heard from friends I hadn't heard from in many months since this pandemic started. And they called to allegedly check in on me and the kids. And they're like, hey, including my rabbi, he's like, hey, I saw you with that Sasha. Are you guys, I go, what? I go, no, it's professional. My kids still sleep in my bed. I've been divorced 4 times. No, we're doing they go, oh, I didn't think so. She's very cute and she's way younger than you. And I said, well, wait a minute. What do you say? We could be. It's humanly possible. And so it started, and then with you yesterday, what's fun is with people that I've known a long time like you, 25 years or so, and to hear Sasha, I said, what do you do about Dr. Drew? She started talking about you, and she researches you, and it's really fun to hear what she knows about you, is growing up in North Carolina. And I just want to say at the top, and I just want to get it over with, but you are, you have, your voice, you have helped more people in the United States than any human being, period. You, Dr. Drew, has reached out and talked about addiction and reached more human beings than any person in the history of addiction. Bill W. and Dr. Bob wrote the wonderful book, and the AA is the best program of any kind of, for anything, period. It's the best thing. It's free. It's whatever. But your voice to young people, to reach out and talk about these things that whatever it is you talk about, people are like, oh no, and I'm talking about, you were talking about Dr. Fauci, you were involved talking about AIDS to young people and talking about saying sex to young people when people hated you. And with what you just said about the people panicking, because I just want to say this. It's not all the media. It says people panic, but I did see a great thing, and I thought about Dr. Drew today because Dr. Fauci was testifying in front of the Senate.
Yep.
And another doctor, Dr. Rand Paul, who's an optometrist or something, was trying to
get him, Dr. Drew, get him.
Debunk Dr. Fauci. And did you see that, Drew? Did you happen to see that?
And it was really an unfortunate exchange because rather than two smart doctors sort of discussing the science, they just did it the way they do it in Congress. You know what I mean?
The
point. Let me say something. The point was very important. How much cellular immunity is out there? How many T cells from previous coronavirus exposure? This is something that's discussed in the science all the time. I did a whole thing on it yesterday, and they were, rather than getting at that, they just blew up. It was just a wasted opportunity.
But he had a monologue, Rand Paul, before that.
Yep.
Where he's like, "What about this? What about this? What about this?" I just think, but then he's like, 22%. That was at the end. Of his monologue, and but he had repeated a bunch of stuff before that. And Dr. Fauci, I think, handles everything very well and doesn't get into the politics of things.
Yes,
and he does have some experience, as you know, from. But at the end, they landed on a number of 22%, and he did stop and say, if you think 22% is herd, whatever, then you are the only person on the planet who believes that's good enough. So at least you walk away going, okay, 22% is not herd immunity. And so all he kept saying was,
but here, let me you're so right. And it was not, it made me cringe, and I was disappointed by the whole thing. You know how I get, everything just upsets me and makes me unhappy that we don't move things together productively. But what they should have said was, whenever they've studied isolated population, the number 20% keeps coming up. Is that 20% because 50% already have some cellular immunity from previous coronavirus? If that's so, how might we prove that? That would be what we need to do. But they didn't talk anything about that. They talked about 20%, which is not herd immunity. It's crazy.
He cited a new study that just came out. Dr. Fauci actually cited that. But also, Rand Paul just doesn't want people to wear masks. He doesn't want to follow the four things.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy.
Trump people don't wear masks. So it really comes back to our candidate is a witch doctor, okay? And his people don't wear masks, and we want to get him reelected. So we're going to do all these red herrings about this other stuff. But instead of just listening to the science, and since Rand Paul is an optometrist, he's
ophthalmologist. It's a little different. It's a little different.
Yeah.
Eye surgeon.
Anyways,
gosh,
look at Sasha there. Sasha, what part? She's in the house somewhere. What part of the house are you? Are you in the back of a diesel truck? I'm not going to tell you because
you're going to find me and then go do something for you. I'm in a van that I chose to get in myself.
It's a part of the house where Tom can't get to.
I've never seen it. You're doing construction on the street, I think.
Well,
Drew, Sasha's
it's a laundry room. You'll never find me.
Well, here's the thing about Sasha. I want to do two things right off the top here. One, well, first of all, Sasha does her homework, and she had a whole bunch of questions she didn't get to yesterday, or was it yesterday, the day before? Monday. And I want to give her a chance to give you a chance to ask some of those questions. You can interview me on some of those things you were interested in. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then the other thing is, Tom, I took home to Susan your glowing report of her producing abilities. Tell her now what you told me.
Well, I said, number one, I have a separate relationship with Susan Pinsky. I said, she gets people. She produces the show. First of all, She is on it, and she puts people, the people that she puts together on the show. And I went into detail. Drew has no idea the personalities, and not only what happened the last episode of the show when it was Andy Dick, both Papadopouloses, and he has no idea what was going on behind the scenes. And you produced it before the show and after the show, and the stuff that was going on afterwards. You worked so hard, but all of a sudden you put everybody together, and it was impossible because people are like, "Oh no!" And then all of a sudden there we were, and Drew was like, "Okay, so how are you guys doing?" Like it is, and you do an excellent job, and you're like. And you the calls and the stuff and the words. I'm just telling you, there has to be a show about making this show, Susan. And I know you have your own podcast because we're doing it today.
Anytime Dick's involved, you know it's going to be a shit show.
So much respect. Oh my God, so much respect.
Thank you.
And he could. Oh, he
wasn't even the problem that day. He broke a mic, but that was about it. Otherwise, it got a little hairy. A little hairy at the end.
How about when he broke? Susan, how about when he broke a mic and then he was like, Cece Papadopoulos, we're not gonna. Maybe she won't be on. Maybe it'll be just George. And then, oh my God, because that was the whole point. And I was like, oh no, because then she was. I told her, I'll go to the show with you. And then it was George and his mom, and all the stuff that was going down. And then allegedly he thought she was having an affair with Andy Dick. And he was on the show. The stuff that could have happened.
And then I was booking airline tickets in the next hour.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then it went on after the show. If you remember, you and I were like.
Hey, before Sasha, I get to your questions, let me take a couple calls here because the people are lining up to talk to Tom. Tom, this is Jason for Tom.
Uh-oh.
Hey.
Hi, am I on the air?
You are on the air.
Oh, thanks for taking my call. This is a pleasure to speak with all of you. I really appreciate it. I have a question for Tom. Tom, are you still married to Roseanne?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Simple enough.
Yes, I am.
Here's
Yes.
This is Morgan. Tom, you might find this kind of interesting. Morgan, go ahead.
Hi, nice to talk with all of you.
You bet.
First off, but I had some questions for you, Dr. Drew. I actually have a pretty new syndrome. It's called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I've been to the doctors, they don't really have much to say about it. So I was just curious if you had any tips or anything that could bring awareness to it because it's still pretty new in the medical world.
It's not new in my world. Strange that your doctors wouldn't know about this. Look it up online. You'll just see there's just page after page after page of article about it. You ever heard of this, Tom?
No, please.
Pretty crazy.
Tell me.
It's cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. When it hit essentially it started when they legalized pot in Colorado. They started seeing this in the emergency rooms in Colorado, and originally they called it scromiting because the people would have such intense vomiting that they'd be screaming while they vomited. So they started calling it scromiting.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. And then it distilled down into a more characterized syndrome now called cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. And once you get into these, there's no way to stop the vomiting other than stopping the pot, except when it happens, a hot shower. Believe it or not, a hot shower is the one thing that.
They're not able to keep me out of the bath when I go through these episodes.
Right. Isn't that interesting? And we have no idea why the hot shower does it. But, and Tom, this is one of the reasons I'm interested maybe in you talking to Morgan. Is there any world where you'd contemplate stopping the pot, the weed?
Well, there's a lot of, I know from opioid, being addicted to opiates, there's a lot of disgusting stuff that comes with that, and you just deal with it. You don't poop for long periods of time. There's vomiting, just with any addiction. Yeah. There's all kinds of disgusting things that come with it, and you don't. The best thing is to move on to another drug. Oh. Pot is. The thing about pot, Morgan, is if I'd have just smoked pot, I would have saved. I'm all for anything around that drug if that's your drug of choice, if you can handle it. But hearing this, of course, there's something that ruins. I would hate to ruin my vocal cords. I have one working vocal cord, and this sounds like if you're screaming when you're vomiting, you're putting yourself in danger. You know what? I had to have surgery to have injections into my throat and just to be able to speak. And the idea, there was a period of time for a month where I had no voice, and thinking about you're risking having no voice, and those risks compared to, you know, the idea of smoking pot or whatever. I mean, that's the peril that you're putting yourself into, and because once your vocal cords go, there's no surgery for that, and you could lose both of them, and they're tiny little things like little butterflies. So that's the kind of, you know, you got to think about those consequences. So I would consider, that's not good.
Yeah, and obviously vomiting bad for the dentition. It can tear your esophagus, gastritis, all kinds of stuff. But it keeps going. It just keeps going until you're ready to stop. And in fact, Tom, I'm reading the thought bubble over Sasha's head. She goes, "Oh my God, these old guys are calling weed pot."
No, it would have been worse if he called it grass. Grass, I would have closed my computer. Or smoke. But does the amount change at all? Like, does the amount affect it? What if she only did weed gummies?
It's possible. No, and it's the cannabis itself. I mean, she can mess around with it, but I'm sure she has. She seems to know what this is all about. Sasha, have you ever heard of a lid?
Yes, sir.
You have?
Is that...
What's a lid, Tom? What's a lid?
That like Dr. Drew? Dr. Drew, is that a sexual thing?
No.
You know, a ditch. You know, you grow up in Iowa. You know, and now they're really good at growing pot in Iowa. But you know, ditchweed and a lid is a certain size portion of a pot. You know.
From 19, it was from 1974 is how it was
well, you know, my sister says, we're going back to Iowa to their film. Discovery Channel's filming a 4-part documentary series about my sister, who was the biggest methamphetamine dealer in America.
What?
So, and it's, you know, yes, Lori Arnold. She was my little sister. You can Google it. And so they're going back over. She's out of prison, and what happened to the economy, and what happened to, you know, and they were making their own meth underground at her farm, and you know, a lot of people were affected by that in the Midwest, and you know, doing business with the Mexican mafia, just you know, not so good. And but
did you get a lid of meth?
They didn't deal in what she just gave me, you know,
weed.
You know, no weed, and they were dealing in lids. They're dealing in, but you know, Sasha does it. She's sober, so you know, Sasha doesn't, you know, partake. I wish she'd have a gummy.
She's sober or normie.
Well, she's. I think she's a normie, but you know, she's. Well, I'll let you speak for yourself, Sasha. Hello.
I got in a fight with my sister over Christmas. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And we were in a really bad fight, and I thought I won, and she thought she won, and she said, "Well, you were just drinking, so I won." So out of spite, I stopped drinking for a year until I meet her next Christmas. So technically, I'm sober.
That's
spite. You got a fist fight.
Even so, that's not an alcoholic move. Just to go, I'll show you. I'm going to stop drinking. I don't know any alcoholics to do that. But your sister comes right up here. An article pops right up: "The Adventures of America's Original Meth Queen."
Yeah, and you know, they had this this company produced a really great documentary about the war on drugs and how it may have started in that term started in the Nixon administration by Bob Haldeman coined it. And she was a part of that with all that stuff, and they did a quality job, and so they came to her and I recommended she do it, and we're going to participate. And you know, it's not a good thing, but a lot of my hometown, that her friends, everybody went to prison, and the kids that are younger, including my nephew, you know, my parents had to take care of my nephew, and we had to take care of him, And it's really looking at what happened with the factories, what happened, you know, and then, you know,
it's great. I can't wait to see it. It's American history, man. It's a part of American history right now. It's interesting. I'm watching our chat thread, and there's a lot of, you know, people from our generation. They're talking about the cost of a lid. It's about $20, and how to avoid the paraquat. And,
yeah, you know.
I mean, woof, this is a walk down memory lane. All right, Sasha, go ahead. You can ask me some questions now.
Dr. Drew.
Yes, ma'am.
You were from Pasadena and you grew up there. Then you went to school in Boston and then you came back to Pasadena. And then I believe you have a practice there. And going through your entire history of your life, it feels like Pasadena was such a hub for you and such a part of who you are. So I was just wondering, like, what's the connection? Like everyone, you know, Tom is obsessed with being from Iowa. It's pride. It's his family. So I was just wondering, like, what is Pasadena to you? Is it almost like not even a place, but a part of who you are?
Well, I guess that goes without saying because so much time has been spent here. But it's amazing to me that that's what happened. I did not anticipate coming back. I thought I was going to go to school in Boston and maybe stay out there. But once I came back to University of Southern California, all the medical students were living in Pasadena and South Pasadena. So I just lived. I knew how to do that. I knew this city, so I just did it. And when it came time for us to raise kids, I really appreciated what my high school did for me, and I wanted my kids to have the same experience. So I was sort of driven to complete that. Now I can't wait to get out of California. I'm hating California right now, but that's a different matter.
No.
Yeah. But Pasadena is still pretty nice as compared to a lot of Los Angeles area right now. But and we spent a lot of time in other places, but we do tend to come back here. We have a lot of roots here. We are very involved here. I don't know. It's an interesting question. It's a really interesting question. And I know another thing that happened. Here's one of the big things that happened is when I was because I was here in Pasadena, I started training in it's SC hospitals here in Pasadena and things. When I started moonlighting in a psychiatric hospital. And that hospital had been here for over 100 years in Pasadena. It was this crazy old institution that nobody really knew about, except on the East Coast they knew all about it. But it was sort of kept super quiet here. And when I first walked into it, it's called Las Encinas. And when I walked in there, I was like, oh my God, where'd this come from? I've lived all these years in Pasadena. I kind of knew this was here, but I had never set foot on it. And the work I started doing there felt like I was like designed for the work. That was meant to do this and meant to do it at this facility. So that was a really eerie thing for me that I stayed with for a couple decades.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Sasha,
so your father was a doctor. Wait, wait 1 second. What? What?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Tom, are you married to Roseanne? Okay, real quick. Your father was a doctor, and your mother was an actress, a beautiful actress. And I just you have completely been like the combination of those two as an entertainer and as a physician. And did you plan that? Like, what was it like? It wasn't like Mommy Dearest, even though in my head, that's what I think of.
She had a little bit of that in her, believe me. Yeah, believe me.
I want your life to be a movie. Please tell me about that.
Well, somebody's talking about a documentary, not about a movie, but a documentary. Yeah. And there was abuse. Let's not sugarcoat it. I mean, she was abusive to me exclusively. And I never thought of it as any sort of following in anybody's footsteps, except my dad. I saw it about following in his footsteps. I sort of was always sort of moving that way. I went away from it for a year or so because I was like, no, this is not me. I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to be a musician. I had my head so spun, it was ridiculous. And when I came back to sciences, well, then I was much better. It really centered me. My depression got better. Everything got better. And when you look at it, it's an integration of those two people's careers, my parents. But I never, I didn't kind of experience it that way. It was weird. I mean, it certainly was in the vapors that I grew up in. That's for sure. Hey, Susan, I am dying of hot heat in here. Is there a way? I am absolutely drenched in sweat right now.
I'm making you relive your childhood trauma. Maybe you're getting hot.
Exactly.
But you have, I'm so sorry. But my last thing is you have pioneered your way through this career that you have cultivated like nobody else. I can't think of, I'm sure there's something that I'm missing, but the way you have given out this information through entertainment, starting as early on the radio, did it all kind of happen step by step, day by day? Or were you like, aha, this is how I'm going to give information to the young generation?
No. Well, there was an aha, oh my God, they're coming here. I need to stay here and keep giving them the information. But there was no blueprint. There was no, I'm going to do, to this day, people will say, hey, we want to try something. I'm like, yeah, let's see how that works. Maybe we can make something important or interesting out of it. I mean, it was just a serendipity that I went up there to do the first radio show, and I was like, oh my God, I think this is important. Somebody's got to answer these questions, and I know what 24, 18-year-olds are up to, and somebody's got to talk to them, and that was it. That's sort of what I started doing, and I thought I was doing community service. I thought I was doing community service. I was interesting. I met lots of interesting people, but I never imagined. I mean, I remember in about 1985 or so, somebody said something about, hey, well, what do you want, what's going to happen in 10 years or what are you be doing in 10 years? And I thought to myself, well, not this. I mean, I don't know what I'll be doing, but I'll be practicing medicine, I guess. And I just had there still is no plan. No plan. Hey, Tom, what was your question? I'm dying to know what you wanted to know.
Well, my question is, and it's to do with all this. Sasha, came in my bed, walked in the bedroom one time recently, and she said, hey, what do you think about hallucinogenics for depression? She asked me because I'm her go-to guy on drugs, and I said, that's a terrible idea.
Oh, man.
That is a terrible. And she's always like, well, what if I took drugs for?
I saw it on TikTok.
And yeah, I said that's a terrible idea. My experience with hallucinogenics was taking acid 3 times and being in jail all of those times. Of course, I drank a fifth of whiskey each time, but I ended up in fights with the police or whatever. But but the people I know that have taken hallucinogenics from doctors that give them hallucinogenics, and I think Drew would know the names of these, it has ended sometimes tragically recently even. And my experience would be that's a terrible idea. And for somebody I love like Sasha, who's living with me, and I'm like, that's a terrible idea. That's just that's my opinion.
Let me pile on a little bit and first just say Sasha's living with you, but she's living evidently in the closet somewhere locked away. But okay.
This is my room.
A van in the parking in the driveway.
Down by the river.
Down by the river.
But the hallucinogen story is complicated. It's being studied. There's some very fine people looking into it. I can tell you that if you had end-of-life dread, real fear, anxiety, and dread, and a terminal diagnosis, there is a role for hallucinogens, it looks like to me. That the risks, you're going to die anyway, so the risk, and you're going to die soon.
Yeah.
So the risks are outweighed by any potential untoward effect.
Yeah.
Whether or not psilocybin or microdose, these drugs change the brain.
Yeah.
And whenever you're changing the brain in a sustained way, like changing the wiring and the structure, you're changing the personhood. And that stuff really scares me. I worry about it. There will one day be something we'll be doing with that stuff. I'm sure of it because it just looks interesting, but not yet. Not yet. So, Sasha, don't do it.
Okay, I won't. No, I'm kidding. I won't.
Yeah.
I won't.
Brian,
I have a lot of friends. They go on that. They go and I'm. They go down to Brazil with an expert, and they go on. They're normies though.
Yeah.
And they go on one of these retreats, and they have with each other on this spiritual.
The Joshua tree.
That's not normal. What is it? And it's they have normal, natural, fun things, and they go with an expert, and it's fun. Like normal people, I don't know if you know this, Drew. They have fun. They're not like addicts that just ruin everything, and that's a different thing. But you're right. Thank you for saying that too, Drew.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
But if you're dying, all bets are off, man. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's worth taking the risk. And there is a whole school out there of people that feel like they can use plant hallucinogens in low dose to help people deal with trauma. And there's a whole underground world I've been exposed to of that, people doing therapy on hallucinogens. I don't know what to make of that because they don't publish their data. If we could get data, Sasha, I could refer you in the directions you needed to go. But we just don't have the data yet.
Yeah. Drew, let me ask you this.
I hear you. I was looking for a quick fix. That's why.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. We were talking about Michael Jackson. Where were you when he died yesterday on our podcast? Well, he was taking Propanol at home, and I've taken that in the hospital to knock me out for surgery. When you're on Propanol in the hospital and they're operating on your body, does that trauma of being cut and being, does your brain still feel that trauma even though you're under? Is that trauma?
It's a great question. I'd say no, but there is concern about how we disrupt our autonomic system. We may be cutting through nerves and things like that. And so it may change how your body processes feelings, if that makes sense. Right? Because
can you heal that? Can you work on that after?
Yeah.
Can you heal that? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the neurological system is highly plastic. We replace regions, and this system, people talk about chakras, right? Really, we're talking about these nervous mats that we have over certain parts of our body. But if you say, my heart hurts, you're describing neural tissue over your heart. It actually hurts. And if somebody opens your chest and works on your heart, they're going to disrupt some of that. But your body compensates, moves things, and starts using other areas. But it certainly changes how you process feelings. And let's remember, all feelings originate in the body, right? A feeling is ultimately something in your gut or your chest. It's a feeling that gets processed in the brain and then brought into an emotion. But they start as feelings. And there is concern about what we're doing to that nervous tissue with operations, things like that. But you're out. You're gone when you're under anesthesia.
Right. And if the chakra, if your roommate would give you like a sexy massage, that would be like a medical situation, right?
Yeah. But you have to go into her van to get that. You can't do it just out.
Exactly. I'll unlock the doors again.
So, and by the way, Sasha, speaking of depression, maybe some sunlight for you might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe get out of the van. That's all I'm saying.
I have an iron deficiency. It doesn't matter. I'm still pale as a ghost.
Well, it's not about your skin color. It's just about I'm worrying about your mood and that metallic, that metal environment. Here's a call for Tom.
Show what's in that cabinet. Open that cabinet up behind you, Sasha. Open the cabinet behind you. There's a lot of extra.
I can't. Behind it. Someone's on the phone.
Wet wipes. There's wet wipes for kids.
Hey guys.
I know.
Hey Brian, you got a call? You have something for Tom? I got you, Brian. Hey man.
Hey man. It's kind of both for Tom and Drew.
Yeah.
The issue I find all the time with addicts, like former addicts, they always get over everything, right? But they smoke pot every day, right? So how isn't that just transferring an addiction?
Typically.
And I've heard Dr. Drew say that if you smoke pot every day, you're considered an addict. So,
here's the thing.
Tom still an addict? Or,
well, Brian, here's the deal.
How's his sobriety going?
All right.
It's frustrating.
All right. Let's let Tom answer it. Go ahead.
Well, I don't do anything. I don't take any pills. I don't do any kind of mood altering drug, and I've been like that for years. I don't take any medicine that would, if I haven't had a surgery in a long time, and so I don't do anything, and I don't do any. I don't smoke any pot. I don't take anything that's, I don't do anything, and if you did smoke pot, you would not be sober. Now,
to be fair, a lot of people, abstinence-based sobriety is something that a lot of people reject. They don't want to do it. It's hard work. It's a better, more flourishing, fully realized life. Trust me, it's way better for the addict. But some people want to be on some sort of harm avoidance or replacement therapy. And if you're going to be on a replacement therapy, I'd rather you be on weed than on
Oh yeah.
Opiates.
Yeah.
You know. So okay.
It doesn't work for. I have to be. I can tell you from my experience, from 35 years of going to 34. I went to my first sober meeting in 1986, and I can tell you from my experience of doing this, doing that, and of being sober 20 years and relapsing on this and opioids and this and benzos after that and doing this. My experience is nothing.
Right.
That's what works for me. That's going to keep me alive.
That's right.
And that's what I feel good about. So,
and
but other people can do it.
And I'm not interested personally as a physician. I didn't get into the field of addiction medicine to have people sort of marginally well when I know how to make them better than they ever knew they could be. That's why that's what I saw happen to people, and I was interested in being a part of that, like understanding how to do that and get people there. And if somebody wants a replacement therapy, God bless them. You know, I can refer them to somebody that will do that for them. But I'm not interested in that. It's just not. Right. It's not very interesting. It's keeping people chronically ill. Hey, what did I want to ask you, Tom? There was something else in the pod question. It's gone. Sasha, any more questions for me?
Are you into horoscopes?
My wife is. She's actually doing a psychic show. Maybe you should be the guest. Maybe Sasha should call
Susan.
in. Susan has psychic friends, and she does podcasts with them.
Oh, I'm calling into Susan for
okay,
sure.
What time is that? What time is...
I think we both are we? Are we doing
is that true?
Yeah.
Is that happening?
Like a medium? We're doing that today, right?
Yeah.
Today at 6.
Yeah,
Today at 6 p.m.
o'clock.
Pacific. Susan does this thing. Yeah, she'll be calling you, Tom. Don't worry. You have a separate relationship, and you've now activated her.
So do I.
Hey, so Drew.
Yeah.
Oh, Susan's going to be so great. Hey, Drew, did your mom have something to do with Red Skeleton, or did I read wrong?
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
And strangely,
That was
talk
my
about
research.
that.
you know what's really weird is that if you go, this was weird. If you go, you know, the 57th Avenue CBS Studios in New York City, that long building. Yeah. Along the wall there by one of the sound stages, there are all those old pictures from, like, you know, Bob Hope and that. My wife, my mother has a full wall-size picture of her there. Which,
Hold on.
Yeah, I know. Okay, Dr. Freud. Dr. Freud, okay.
Don't do that to him. That's a different podcast,
go ahead,
Tom. Don't do that to him.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Your mother
has a full wall of her with a guy named Ben Blue, which was, this was all the sort of Red Skeleton show, I think it was, that she was on. Yeah. Isn't that weird?
No, it's weird, but it's also, I knew that, and that's a big deal. I'm going to tell you something, Drew. That's a big deal.
What's
Red
a big
Skeleton,
deal?
if you're not from the Midwest.
Oh, yeah.
Red Skeleton is a genius, and everybody affiliated with the show
My grandfather watched
is a
that.
genius. He is a genius, and so your mom worked with greatness. Your mom, and you have to be great. I'm just going to, I know you had issues, because, you know, whatever. But I'm going to tell you something.
Whatever. Don't let it get in the way of Tom's admiration.
That's a big deal, because that's up there with Jackie Gleason. She's up there with all the.
Yeah.
And so I just got to mention that. And,
Okay, you're just turning the knife now.
Well, no, and I think the issue.
I'm not acknowledge that.
Yeah, and I think the issue is that she had forsaken her career to raise children, and that she was not exactly.
No.
Huh? Oh, that's right. Susan's remembering that she has this crazy past. You ready? This is good for the movie, Sasha. So I'm about 5 years old or 50 years old. I'm sitting on Loveline, and a friend of mine goes, he went to see what I did at night. He's my neighbor here. He's a professor at SC. He's the guy who wrote the book with the Mirror Effect. We ended up writing that book. But we're sitting there, and he goes, I'm a fan of film noir. Your mom was in film noir. So he looks it up. It's the early age of Google. Maybe I was 45 years old. And he goes, look, here she is. And he reads the bios. You know, Helene Stansbury, she was married to some silent film star in, 1940. I'm like, really? A previous marriage? I had no idea. And it turned out she was she was the fifth wife of some silent film star when she was 18, who carted her out from Philadelphia to Los Angeles. She had a stepson, I found out. I called him. I just called the guy up. He was a retired dentist.
Right away?
Not right away. Well, actually, it wasn't right because I had to think about it for a while. And Corolla and I were doing an event up in Santa Barbara, and this woman came up to me and she goes, I need to make an amends to you. I go, really? Why? For my grandfather. He was your mom's ex-husband. And I was like, oh, I got to hear about this. And her dad was the stepson. So I said, can I talk to your dad? And she called him up. He's a retired dentist in Stockton, a super nice guy. And there was this entire life that she was hiding, and then let go of her whole career. Here's another funny thing. So I'm talking to the guy in Stockton, the dentist, and he goes, yeah, my dad was an asshole. He was a drinker and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, but, these people, he just was telling stories. And he goes, yeah, they lived over by the La Brea tar pits, like the Miracle Mile. I'm like, interesting. And every Sunday night, this couple would come over. Now, my mom would regale us with stories about the women that she was sort of around with at the time. Anne Bancroft, Carolyn Jones. These were names I was hearing. Yeah. And, but this guy goes, yeah, the actor, there was a couple. The man was this very famous character actor. I didn't recognize the name, but he said, if you look him up, you'll recognize the face. And he goes, and the woman, she was very interesting. She goes, maybe you know her. She played Granny on the Beverly Hillbillies. I'm like, my entire childhood, I watched the Beverly Hillbillies. My mom never went, hey, that one. I knew her. Granny from the Beverly Hillbillies. So I was like, wow, all this crazy stuff. Anyway, so she evidently was ambivalent about having left that career behind, I would say.
Well, you ruined your life.
That's exactly what it was, Tom. Thank you.
I know.
Cutting right to the chase.
I know.
That's exactly what it was.
Wow. You don't need therapy. You got Tom Arnold there.
Oh, my gosh.
Jeez.
Well, it's complicated.
It's complicated.
Well, yeah.
I mean, she wasn't no meth queen. I didn't have a meth queen relative, but...
No.
Yes, Dr.
Let me say
Drew,
this.
yes.
There's always, you just can't, as you know this from life, you just can't go, and I, of course, I totally respect everything you say. It's never the kid's fault, but it's always complicated. Your story is, I'm glad I had to mention that about your mom, because it just makes you way more interesting. The life, it just shows how many more layers there are. And in my sister's case, she went to prison, federal prison. Her husband died in Leavenworth, and their 7-year-old son, who we all raised, got married last summer. He's never drank or done a drug. He's a giant, his name is Biggie, because, the kids in our town, there's 3 black families. They're a best friend. They all want to be, but he's never done a drug or drank. And so things, life is funny. But there's 2 super famous people from my town. I went to, at the same time, whatever happened, for the grace of God, I did drugs. She brought drugs, she'd come to Thanksgiving, there's 7 kids in our family. She'd walk in with her big purse. We'd all look and then stand up and go out in the garage with her. My dad was like, he couldn't believe she was a drug dealer. She'd open the purse, it'd be 20 degrees below zero, and we'd all get in a circle, all the brothers and sisters. She'd offer us everything. We'd stand out there and do drugs while my dad's in the house like, duh. And, but she got married at 14 to this biker man. And that's, I was 15 and I was like, you can't do that and whatever. And I couldn't sell it because I used so many. But it could have been me. I just, so whatever that was. But, very lucky.
When we get back, speaking of this issue, as they say, healthy people aren't very interesting. It's the unhealthy things that make us interesting, right? I mean, that's... Yeah, it's about the trick is being able to integrate and recover and be resilient and make it back from all that. That's the key thing.
Yeah,
but there's we have a call. To that point, we have a call after. We have to take a little break here for some ads. But when we get back, we're going to talk about creativity and addiction. So we'll be right back. With so much focus on keeping ourselves and our loved ones safe and healthy, it's easy to forget that most of us are going to experience things like allergies, colds, possibly even the flu. So, reminding you, proper hydration is crucial for all of these things. Remember, even slight dehydration can make you feel like you're getting sick, and none of us need that anxiety right now, that's for sure. That's where Hydrolyte comes in. Longtime fans will remember my obsession with Hydrolyte, which is simply the best oral rehydration product I've tried. I'm even more excited to introduce their brand new single-serve powder sticks. Simply pour 1 powder stick into a glass of water. They recommend 7 ounces. The powder dissolves almost instantly, creating the perfect balance of sodium, glucose, and water. Delivers up to 4 times the electrolytes of your typical sports drink. The other great news about Hydrolyte's new powder sticks, they're 100% all natural, no artificial flavors, colors, or sweeteners. They're available in flavors like orange and lemonade, and they taste great. Hydration is crucial, and Hydrolyte is fastest and easiest way to stay ahead of it. Get your supply of Hydrolyte powder sticks now at hydrolyte.com/DRDREW. Again, that's HYDRALYTE.com/DRDREW, and then use that code Dr. Drew 25 at checkout. The World Health Organization estimates that each year approximately 1 million people take their own life. That's 1 death every 40 seconds. Experts predicted numbers would peak in 2020, but no one could have imagined the devastation brought on by COVID-19. During the coronavirus pandemic, you may experience anxiety, sadness, and loneliness. Existing mental health conditions, including severe anxiety and major depression, may worsen. If you're feeling hopeless, contemplating self-harm, or you're concerned about someone else, I'm here to tell you there is hope. A Mission for Michael is dedicated to helping clients achieve complete inner and outer transformation. Mission for Michael is the premier resource for intensive mental health treatment in Southern California. With an astonishing 2-to-1 client-to-staff ratio, each client in their facility receives individual care 24 hours a day, overseen by a team of all doctorate or master's level clinicians. With a focus on evidence-based treatment, along with personalized and compassionate care, they offer mental health treatment that can change lives. If you're suffering from mental illness or you're concerned about a loved one, go to amfmtreatment.com. Again, that's a mission for Michael, amfmtreatment.com, or call 866-581-4401. Again, that is 866-581-4401. One and only Tom Arnold, Sasha Boggs. They have a podcast. Again, where can the people find the pod?
Sasha, where?
They can find it on iTunes and Spotify. It's called Two in the Bush with Tom Arnold and Sasha Boggs.
Is there a Twitter feed handle also?
Yeah.
No.
No Twitter?
Yeah,
well, guys.
There was. I mean,
yeah.
Two in the Bush Twitter as well, which I can send to you guys. It's.
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter too. Very.
Tom is the podcast Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, all the pictures of us, I look like I ate myself. that guy. You guys look like your pictures. Sasha, you look amazing. You really went all out because your family is watching today, right? And your friends are watching. You know, your friends, your family back home in North Carolina. Hey, let's give a shout out to your family and your brother-in-law and your sister and your nephew and your dad and your mom. They're out there watching. You know, she's got a really good looking brother-in-law. She wants her brother-in-law. She's mad because he doesn't get on the phone with her sister and FaceTime.
Unnecessary.
But why would he do that? You know, he's what's his name? Lester Bangs. What's his name? He's like he's a really good looking guy. Super good looking. Her sister is too.
Parker.
And she goes, I'm really disappointed. I'd always dreamed of having a brother-in-law that wanted to FaceTime with me and my sister together. But he's a real man, and he gets off as soon as they get on.
Dr. Drew,
he's a really good dude.
Don't ever tell Tom anything intimate because he will repeat it in public, online, on Twitter, wherever.
Her family is great.
Establish a trusting relationship.
Wait, couple things.
He has a great family. Great family. They're great.
He doesn't repeat it, Sasha. It just comes out of him. He's not repeating. It just comes out. It's just there it comes. Did we misspell your last name? Hang on. Did we misspell your last name?
No, but Roggs was something. Okay. Yeah.
Because I thought Tom said Bags or something. It's a Boggs, right?
No, she doesn't.
Well, here's the thing. My
Lester
sister married a man.
It's
not Lester. Nobody's named Lester. That doesn't exist anymore.
Elmer?
Parker Banks is my brother. Elmer. Okay. Jesus Christ. Elmer. Parker Banks is my brother-in-law. Ariel Boggs is my sister. She married it from Boggs to Bangs. They're getting the biggest shout out on this.
Okay, that's why I got confused. Okay, it makes sense. So let me go. We're going to talk
confusing.
to Leopold has a question about creativity and addiction. This should be interesting. So Leopold, go right ahead.
Please.
Hey, Dr. Drew,
Hey, man.
and shout out to you, and absolutely big fan of Tom Arnold, and love your new podcast with Sasha Boggs.
Nice.
But I had a question regarding addiction and creativity. Just to give you a background, I'm very familiar with 12-step programs. I went from being a huge compulsive overeater, and I mean huge. I was over 450 pounds, lost 200 pounds, and but with that, I would switch addictions. I played this whack-a-mole, so I'd go from, food addiction when nothing, when I clamp that down, I'd go to sex addiction, I'd go to gambling. But when I clamped them all down, I noticed that I went big into creativity, and I created all this art, and that along with learning how to fly a sailplane. And I'm wondering, is there, in your experience, especially in Hollywood, where there are so many different addicts, is there a link, you think, between creativity and addiction?
Great question. Let's sit tight and see what Tom says. A great question, Leopold. Thank you. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, number one, anytime, thank you for sharing that. Anytime someone mentions Hollywood and addiction, I always feel like I have to say there's also so much sobriety in Hollywood because there's so much opportunity to get sober here, and but I think there probably is definitely a link between that because there's so many artists that I always consider vulnerable because they have the way I'm going to describe it is not the way Drew would describe it, I'm sure, but you'll see I'll have friends that die young, chronologically young, and it's just and I just feel like life it's just too much. They suffer more than I think. You got to kind of be an asshole to really, if you're an addict, you just got to say fuck it, I'm going to do this for me. You got to get really selfish at some point, and I think some people are just too vulnerable. Anybody can be sober. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but listen, you're packing a lot into what you're saying here, and I want to parse it out a little bit and just maybe start with a story. I'll never forget sitting with you at DJ AM's funeral, and we looked at each other like, oh, here it is. You know what I mean? We just so much information passed between us that day, just looking at each other about poor AM. Remember that? Yeah, that's a great example. I'm gonna say something about DJ AM, and he was my neighbor. He was part of my group. He was the nicest guy. He helped, as you know, so many people. And he was definitely an artist, and he created a genre of, I guess, DJs or whatever. And he lived right by us. But as you know, something happened. He went through the plane crash. He got burned, and he got slippery with benzos, and he lost his sobriety, and he just had, there's that little space. Sometimes when it's confirmed, I've lost my sobriety, and there's a minute where the disease says, okay, I'm going to kill you. And you want to go back and do everything you've ever done, just have that one last run. And it's just too, with Tom,
all the best.
Let me just say, Tom, there's something about his story that is pertinent for you too. As I told you in your podcast, my profession has done ridiculous things harmful to you. Yeah. You should know same thing happened to AM. He had a doctor that literally said the following: just as his team was getting him together and getting him back in the program and using other kinds of ways of dealing with anxiety, his doctor looked at him and said, I heard this from a person you and I both know that was very close to him. This doctor said, when are you going to stop hanging around those people that are trying to brainwash you? I'm your doctor. You need to take these medications and listen to me. You tell that to he was dead 2 weeks later. You tell that to a drug addict, there it is, man. Exactly what you're talking about. It's on. Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you this. He was taking Xanax, and he was on a plane because he took, I got to get courage to work and fly on a plane because his doctor said those words to him. And so he told me he got on the plane to take one, and then he woke up, and the bottle was empty.
Right.
They had to wake him up at the end of the flight, and the bottle said. So immediately he says, "Oh, doctor, like I was," and then you're like, "Oh God, okay, I've done this now. I know in my head I know in my head now I've not only done that, but I've done beyond what it says in the bottle, because and then everything like, and the person that we know, that Jeff McFarland, the nicest guy in the world that's helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of addicts, including me, he had the best people around him.
Yeah.
And I know as an addict, I'm going to tell you what you hear. Okay, I know I fucked up. Because you can lie to yourself for a little bit, but then you got to go, okay, I'm going to just do this. And then the devil is going to kill you, the disease. And that's what happened. And it was just awful. And but that is what happened. Doctor's like, you got to there's no other way. I got to get you back to work. Don't you want to make money? It's your career. These other people don't want you to make work, because other people will always tell you the most important thing is your sobriety, not your girlfriend, not the people, this family, not your job. And the doctor's going to go, oh, you have to, it's your career. No, you can't go without, you're going to lose your career. The doctor will immediately talk you into, and that's
easy.
And it really is being alive. Because if you're not alive, and that's what really happened there. But benzos,
they're rough, man.
That's
the current epidemic. Everyone's aware of the opiate epidemic, but the hidden epidemic is the benzo epidemic. It's alive and well. Hey, Sasha, I've always been intrigued by one of Tom's friends, and he's never shared him with me.
But I want to say I'm a compulsive overeater too, like this fella, and I go to that. I mean, but the way I feel like I got to get in shape, and I want to say this. In February, I had massive organ failure, and I was on life support for 11 days. And it was a combination of huge stress, dealing with, this custody stuff, and also the running around that I was having to, the kids and I were way out here, and very unfortunate situation of having to be run back and forth and not knowing where their mother was, and just I also had influenza B, which I wasn't aware of because I hadn't gone. That's on me for getting to the doctor, as well as the virus, which
Tom,
you need to have a test.
Hey man,
on the 8th.
Will you please at least have Jeff call me when you get in these situations, please? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I didn't even. I woke up. I called an ambulance myself, and then I got. I was in the. Then I woke up in the hospital, kind of came too, but there I was. But this is sober. This is completely.
I get it.
Clean and sober.
I get it.
Yeah. But so those kind of things can happen also. But but that's that.
Well,
but the benzo thing.
Yeah, the benzo thing is awful. But let me answer Leopold's question about the creativity. The addicts are.
Oh yeah.
Addicts are more creative. They are more intelligent. They are more sensitive, and almost in a sensory way. Right? Like the world's coming in, particularly the social world. They feel everything, and so the addict is. Look at who the alcoholics were. Our greatest poets, our greatest actors, our greatest. You name the art. It's the alcoholics are the ones that excel in it. They're sort of using more of their brain, and more of the world pours in on them, and they're sensitive to it, and it overwhelms them. And it's absolutely more intelligent and more sensitive. Two other things. We got to wrap up pretty soon, guys. But I have two more things. Both are pretty big topics. One is I want to ask Sasha. I'm intrigued by one of Tom's friends. He never shares him with me. I'm wondering if Governor Schwarzenegger is somebody you've met or Tom has introduced you to.
I have had the privilege, nay, the honor of FaceTiming with Mr. Schwarzenegger in the family home. He is absolutely wonderful. I also, the day that Tom came out of court after battling with some stuff, saw Arnold Schwarzenegger on a bike whizzing past, and the second he was out of my eyesight, then Tom came in. So I feel like Arnold Schwarzenegger is kind of like my guardian angel. He's so kind, so nice, and he's a real flirt. So
he's spending time on the bikes these days. And Tom, you did that one stand-up special, like the All-American one. I forget what the name of it exactly was, where you had told some very hot stories about Mr. Schwarzenegger. Is he still cool with that?
Well, he's got to be. I mean, we are very good. We are very, very good friends, and I love him very much, and he has to love me. But sometimes your friends tell stories, and then you make it, they're true. So, but he's a guy I respect. I don't know anybody else I respect as much as him, because here's a guy that came to this country in 1968 with maybe a short shorts and a dirty tank top at 10 cents, and he's helped more people and done so much for himself and this country. And I tell stories. And when he was governor, we were going back to my closet stories, because I got to hang out up there with him and do stuff. My friend was the governor. It was crazy. And some of our phone calls, we didn't know the governor's office phone was recorded. And we got in so much trouble with stuff. But I love him. I love him.
And Sasha, you might want to look at that comedy special. First of all, it's brilliant and hysterical. But secondly, you can anticipate whatever you tell Tom will one day be up there, just the way Governor Schwarzenegger's stories are. So just look forward to that.
100%, yeah.
And then the other thing I want to get both of you, this was a big story today, Breonna Taylor and the one officer being indicted, but nobody else. You guys have any thoughts about that?
I do.
It's not right.
Well, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad if there's not a history of the systemic racism in this country, a history of cops. It's just it's the way this country is built. That black men have been shot, and there's not a history. Okay, honey, but
it's almost time.
Going
almost time.
That's good. But
I'm bribing them, so they're right on time.
Yeah. But also, I have to say, it's awful. What really happened is these guys busted in the apartment and started shot. You got to give me a second. Okay, busted in the apartment and just started firing their guns. If that had happened to white, that's just unacceptable behavior. They had one person out of 12 in the interview that said, "Oh, we heard them say we're coming in," and no charges were filed for what they did. Yeah. They shot that woman when she was sleeping. And, where's the NRA? Where do we hear them go, that's outrageous in this country? We have a right to defend our homes. They came in their home, they had the wrong apartment, and they just knocked the door down. And there's so much bullshit. And they filed charges against one of the cops because he shot through the wall, and there was a pregnant woman and other people in that apartment. But it's just happens too much. And the woman they killed was a security guard, just a sterling individual, and they just don't get justice. And the justice system has never treated black people the same in this country, and it's extra bad because of what's going on with Trump and what's going on. It's time we changed it. This woman got murdered by cops in her bed in her home, and that's unacceptable.
But isn't the problem, I'm trying to be objective about these things, that, a grand jury, a bunch of people from the community looked at it carefully. Isn't it the laws what need to change? They were just applying.
The criminal justice system there's systemic racism in our criminal justice system. And the cops, the police in this country are part of that. There is a systemic racism problem in our police. There's a huge problem. It has to change. It's not a few bad apples. But when you talk about defunding the police, you're talking about taking money and giving it to social workers and not, they need retrained.
Yeah,
but it's fun taking the money and put it in communities.
I don't know any social workers. I don't have any social work friends that can go bang on on the doors when there's.
No, but they shouldn't be banging on the doors and busting into doors in black neighborhoods and kicking the doors down about a drug thing in the middle of the night. They look at black people different than they do white people. It's less like an animal. They had no reason to do that. Fire their weapons in a small apartment complex at night. That's outrageous. If they didn't think they'd get away with it, they wouldn't have done it. And that's what's wrong in this country. That's something. and you got to own that. You got to don't go like this. Oh, well, then there's going to be the rioters, the people that are protesting are rioting. We can't have the looting. Well, people are angry, just like and it's not okay. We can't overlook it this time. I'm on board with all of it.
All right, fair enough, Tom. And Sasha, I'm going to give you last words. Tom, she gets last words. Okay.
Okay. Thank
you can either ask questions, wrap up, anything you want, anything left.
I do have a last question for you, Dr. Drew.
Yes, ma'am.
What draws you to comedians? You do so much work with comedians, and it's hilarious to see them play off of you. I'm just curious as to why you chose that path.
It is kind of a weird thing. I don't know what that is. I think it is more a function of who I've just been around all the time. And so a lot of the people I know are comedians. And a lot of the people who I do, podcasting with, and by the way, I am more palatable around somebody funny. In other words, Adam Carolla and I used to have a saying that the way I was able to get information across to people was what we called the Gainsberger and the pill philosophy. I was the pill, and Adam was the Gainsberger. We'd wrap the pill in so we could get the dog to take the pill, and that's always kind of worked. That's always kind of worked.
I need to do that to Tom.
I'm going to let you go take care of the kids. I thank you so much. I want to come back and do your pod again. I know, Sasha, you have more questions, and I'd love to be a part of that. Yes. You guys, congratulations. And I'm going to do a little wrap up on my end here, but I'm going to say goodbye to you guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye, Dr. Drew.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye, Suzanne.
Bye.
She's been come on tonight on the calling out thing with the psychics. Yeah, come on.
Can't wait.
Oh yeah.
She'll be calling you, Tom. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you. Can't wait.
I'll be right here.
Bye.
Bye.
You guys have a bunch of. I'm seeing questions here. I want to go back to the restream. Okay, Tom. All right. So that was fun. Jason, come on, be nice. That would be an amazing interview to Arnold Schwarzenegger. That you're right. Now I know what your next conversation with Tom is going to be. Yeah, wouldn't that be interesting? Okay, let me get to you guys. I'm looking at your thread. The phone questions. I'm looking because I'm way behind with you guys, and I didn't have a chance to really get to your comments here. I was busy with Tom and Sasha. Susan, do you have anything you want to comment on the mic there so they can hear you? Anything? No. Okay. Okay, so here you go. Ashley says everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but accusations are dangerous. Laws need to change. Reform should happen. There you go. Well, that's kind of what I was saying. I'm watching you guys. Let me take some calls. Let's do that because I know there's still some calls set up to go here, so I'm going to get to you guys. Let's do it here and talk to Sunny. Hey, Sunny, what's going on?
Hey, I have a question for you. So I'm a 3-time cancer survivor.
Oh my goodness.
And I've had a full colostomy, and I'm barely 50. And I take, I've tried the medical cannabis, doesn't work for me. I either get high or nothing happens because of my GI tract.
Okay.
So I take 10 milligrams of oxycodone once every day or 3 days.
Okay.
So like it's not 3 times, it's 10, like a 10 milligram dose.
Yeah.
Here and there. My adult kids think that I'm addicted to it. Would you consider that where I'm not like, oh, it's been 4 hours, I need to hurry and take one?
You're not dependent. You're not addicted. The only question I would have is, what is it you're taking it for? Are you actually taking it for legitimate pain, or are you taking it to get high?
No, I don't get high at all from it. I'm supposed to get my hip replaced, but we're doing the injections, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And then I have crushed nerves in my spinal cord from my from the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
My goodness. Well, the only thing I worry about is the pain, the opiate making the pain worse, which sometimes happens. But if you're literally taking 1 pill every 3 days, I can't imagine that would really have a bad. I mean, if it helps you and it's every so often, It's definitely not addiction, I'll tell you that. Addiction is a genetic disorder. You have to have a family history. You have to have momentum and progression and ongoing use. And some people have sort of a mild addiction and can control it for a while, but not even if you have that potential, you're probably not going to trigger it, a appropriate therapeutic opioid every few days, I would say. Randall, what's going on? Hey, Randall.
Dr. Drew?
There you are. What's up?
I just wanted to, so before I ask my question, I wanted to know, in 1995, I was admitted to Los Encinas Hospital, and you were my intake interviewer, and I was wondering if I could just take really briefly 2 minutes and tell you how you saved my life.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so I got to Los Encinas. I was actually about 40, maybe 2 or 3 years older than you, and because I think you just started there. I had 3 daughters. You had your triplets, as I recall, and so we shared a lot of those kind of commonalities, and you were really encouraging me that I needed to get clean and sober, for these daughters if they were going to have any kind of life. And so one of the things that you did, and I share this because it may help other people that might be listening to the show, is that I didn't understand why I was addicted. And you did the genogram or the family history, and there was nobody I knew in my family history that was an addict or alcoholic. And at a certain point, you had a little light go on, and you said, "Hey, are you a Mormon?" And I said, "Yeah." And then you started asking me about various relatives. Found out that it was like this extensive alcoholic family tree.
Right.
And once I realized that, you said, now you understand it's a genetic thing. You're not just a bad guy. And the other thing that you said to me, because I had been since childhood undiagnosed ADHD, and at this point combined that with my addiction, I was really being a failure in life. And when I told you that I graduated from college, you kind of said that's amazing because a person with your background should never be able to do that.
Right.
And instead of, it took me 8 years to get through college, and I thought I was just stupid. And you thought 8 years only. And so you really turned my mental framework around and really got me on a different path. So I just wanted to tell you that I'm now 19 years clean and sober.
Oh, congratulations!
And
I have a feeling that stays with me, but I can't put a face to you. But I remember that whole kind of interaction we had because I was starting to see a lot of genetic Mormons who had come away from from Utah, and their addictions exploded, and we had to really carefully parse out the family history, and there was lots of it, lots of alcoholism.
Yeah.
And so congratulations, man. I appreciate it. You've made my day. Thank you for that.
And the other thing that might trigger a memory is that I was a ketamine addict, and I'd been scamming ketamine from a research hospital. And I think you said I was the first guy. This is 1995, and you said, "Oh, I haven't had any one of these guys here yet." And you were picking my brain for a lot those Wednesday night meetings that you do in the bungalow with all the science and that. Yeah. And so we had a lot of really good conversations about that. I was in the Nash house for, I think, 20 weeks, and then you recommended me over to the Bishop Gooden home.
Oh,
I was there for almost 2 years.
Oh, Randall.
Yeah. I mean,
did it
all
right,
of those
man.
things, if I hadn't done those things, I'd definitely be dead. So, you're a miracle in my life. And my question is, I'm now amazingly back in school at Claremont Graduate University.
Right.
And I'm working towards my doctorate in philosophy of religion.
Wow.
And I'm bringing in a lot of And to that end, the 20 years that I've been spending searching and trying to solve addiction, I actually wrote a book, and it was published last year. And I have in my committee a neuroscientist and a quantum physicist.
Good for you.
I just wondered if you had. Yeah, it's pretty fun. At age 65, though, who knows what I'm going to do.
See,
anyway,
Susan,
my point
back to school at 65. So I've been ruminating about that lately. But go ahead. I want to read your book. What's it called?
The 7 Secrets of a Stress-Free Life. It's on Amazon. So
right.
Yeah, you can look into it. Maybe I can talk to one of your staff people.
But if you remember back to those treatment days, I would always say, there's something to be talked about on the spiritual front that I don't feel adequate to address, and it sounds like you've got the goods. So I'm so glad to hear you thinking about that.
So my question is, back then you already were identifying areas in the brain that they realized, were triggers for addiction.
Yep.
But that was 25 years ago. And I got to believe there's a tremendous amount of advances in neuroscience and other brain research. And I'm hoping maybe not right now, but at some point you can point me in the direction of some of that research that I can use, in the studies that I'm doing.
Yeah, it's all over the place. I don't know of one good resource for it. And it's complicated, Randall, because a lot of addicts also have trauma, so it overlaps with the trauma literature. And the trauma neurobiology has really advanced, and interpersonal neurobiology has really advanced, and how we use interpersonal neurobiology to manage motivations and emotions. And that's a big deal about 12. So we sort of know how 12-step works neurobiologically. The disease part of addiction, we're learning more about wiring and parts of the brain that become enlisted as the progression of the disease go on, and what the prefrontal cortex is not doing to sort of put a cap on it and help you reason better, and where all the distortions come from. But the fundamental biology of the addiction is the same. We had identified that in 1995, and that is still pretty much the same. Isn't that interesting?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know some of my research is in the reticular activating system. So that's really coming into play.
Yeah, the reticular activating system and the periaqueductal gray and all that, again, is more on the trauma and the pain and all that stuff. All right, real, it's quick primer. Brain has two systems, a wanting system and a liking system, right? People do drugs to feel good and to feel better. And in order for it to feel good, you have to have the liking system activated. And most people that do drugs, they do it because they like it. It feels good. It solves some problem. The problem with addiction is the wanting system gets activated, and the wanting system continues and drives the use even when the liking system no longer likes it. And that wanting system is a part of the brain that's saying, just do that again, do that again, do that again, do that again. And it will enlist all the other brain elements to make sure that happens, and relationships as well. So other brains get enlisted in the do that again process, which is essentially a usurpation of the survival system. That's basically what happens in addiction. But Randall, thank you for the call. You made my day, man. And it is, I am out of time too, so I can't get too much deeper into it than just that right now. Maybe sometime I will, sort of give a full lecture that I can put up, a place to talk about the biology of addiction, talk about trauma and the relationship between the two, the opioid crisis, and just sort of, it's an interesting idea to have a resource up there. Maybe that's the Patreon thing. Maybe we'll do something like that. Okay, well, listen, guys, thank you to Tom Arnold. Thank you to Sasha. I'm watching you guys on the chat thread. I appreciate you guys being here very, very much. Susan, anything else before I wrap this thing up and go do the Fox 11 program? Oh, she's wandering to the mic. Look for calling out
Caleb's
tonight at 6.
A mic hog today.
Calling out tonight at 6.
This is his show.
Yes.
Oh, yes. We have another episode of Calling Out with Susan Pinsky tonight at 6 p.m. with Psychic Rebel Colby. And as you heard, we're going to have some special guests, previous guests that were on this show today. And I'm hoping we can conjure up some very interesting spirits, because Halloween's coming and I'm in the mood.
Okay, well, she's ready for a big event tonight. So 6 o'clock, okay, which is coming up in just about an hour.
So call in early if you want to get your questions answered and speak to your loved ones, because the lines fill up fast on my show.
Yeah, they do. People are all, it's a Colby tonight, right? All right, you guys. Well, tomorrow, anything I should know, Susan, tomorrow?
Tomorrow? What is tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Thursday.
Just all about you. All about you.
Okay, so tomorrow is just us and the thread and the chat. Friday is Kelly Victory. Do we know what time that's going to be yet? 3 p.m. 3 p.m. Everything's at 3 the rest of the week. I'm adjusting my schedule here as I talk about it. And so, yeah, you guys like Dr. Kelly Victory an awful lot, so we're bringing her back for you to let her challenge me and talk about her, I mean, her positions are defensible. They're not exactly mine, but good for her. And we will look for you again here at 3 o'clock tomorrow on the chat. And until then, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Caleb. Thank you, Susan, for producing this thing. Thank you, Tom, Sasha. See you tomorrow.